her mother died when she was a very young adult, and she had a younger sister. So when she wanted to help her sister understand some things that were happening and were gonna happen to her, she had nobody to go to. So she put a call out to other women. Help me help my sister to understand what we're going to talk about here. That's perfect. We're going to talk about menopause. Because every woman in this room has either been through it, is going through it, or is going to go through it. And every man in this room, and can I just say how lovely it is that there are so many men here? Thank you for just coming to celebrate us. We like it when we're celebrated. But you guys, bless your heart, work yourselves to death trying to understand us. You don't need to do that. You really don't. What we would really love is to walk with us through this journey. Don't try to navigate for us, please. Just travel beside us. Hopefully, we're going to give you a little heads up on what you might expect. This is called All of a Piece. It's a strange word, menopause. That first part, meno, comes from the Latin word mensis, meaning, oh my God, this sucks. But you know, it's the second part that baffles me. Pause. See, there's this implication that the first part is coming back, that this is but a momentary respite from the cramping and the bleeding and the bloating, a temporary break from the inherent bitchiness caused by the cramping and the bloating. See, that can't possibly be right. So from the start, I knew that this whole menopause thing was going to be a figure it out as you go kind of a deal. I was actually okay with that. It's how everything of a female nature has always been for me. I grew up in an era when such things were rarely talked about. And then, only in veiled references, I was neither old enough nor clever enough to figure out. Periods were my mother's time with the month. They were my grandmother's lady time. There were no mother-daughter talks, no explanations, and no, thank God, anatomically correct books. It was all very mysterious. Now, I'm not criticizing. It was a time when manners ruled, and polite conversations did not include body parts. On those rare occasions when you really needed to ask about something, it was spoken of in hushed tones, as if we were the keepers of ancient secrets. And so began my journey of female uncertainty. Puberty quickly and unexpectedly turned me from adorable to awkward. I lived through the onset of periods I didn't know were coming, which, and I swear this is the truth if I've ever told it, arrived on the same day as my very first trip to the pool. I learned what sex was from my very best friend at the park one afternoon, and was so completely grossed out that I threatened to never speak to her again if she didn't take it back. I should probably apologize to very best friend for being so spectacularly wrong about that. But I grew into a young woman, married, became pregnant, and I still had no clear idea of what I was doing. Case in point, the ridiculous notion that no matter how much weight I gained, it would all magically go away as soon as the baby came. I was wrong about that one too. As the years passed, though, I became comfortable in the not knowing. I had learned to trust my instincts, to not worry so much about what I didn't know. And I was beginning to suspect that whether I figured things out or way she was, thank you. It was whispered, of course, and I didn't dare ask her, but looking back, I remember being concerned by some of her behaviors. She'd gotten a little moodier, a little quicker to cry. I didn't like it, but I honestly didn't have a clue why it was happening. She never said a word. Over time, she leveled out. She had not changed enough that I no longer recognized her, and I didn't think about it again. I suppose it might have occurred to me that she was going through menopause, but if that were the case, it didn't seem all that big a deal. Besides, it was years and years before I would need to worry about it. I was young, and as the young are wont to do, did not give my own aging a second thought. But time passes, and babies become toddlers, and then teenagers. Flawless skin begins to show faint lines, and strands of gray seem to appear overnight. Still, this mysterious thing called menopause never occurred to me. I was getting older, to be sure, but at the midpoint of my 40s, I certainly wasn't there yet. Or so I thought. Let me introduce you to my little friend, perimenopause. I began to notice a few vague symptoms, all of which were fairly easy to explain away. My reliable periods had become not so reliable. I was gaining weight, not a lot, but enough that the previously successful cutback on the eating and exercise more no longer took care of it. Fatigue, a lot of that actually. More headaches, other things that ached for no apparent reason. When it got annoying enough, I went to the doctor, and it was then that I learned that I was in this other strange thing called perimenopause. And yes, I looked it up. Apparently, the prefix peri means approaching or about to, or as we say, fixing to. So there it was. Except I didn't. Not for 6 more years. Still had all the annoying things I couldn't figure out, but that's it. It didn't turn into anything. It just was. She looks so confused right now. It's okay. It turns out okay in the end. The unpredictable became normal for me. The uncertainty not so bad. Until, after 6 years of being lulled into some sort of false sense of security that this was as bad as it would get, it got worse. Here and there, a little at a time. The headaches were more frequent, the weight gain more stubborn, the periods more erratic. Right there, that last one, I should have paid more attention to. They weren't just predictable, they were worse, much worse. Discomfort turned to pain. Pain to what I can only imagine a stabbing ice pick might feel like. And not to gross you out worse than my little playground friend, the bleeding turned to something akin to hitting an artery. Okay, we're just going to skip over the next part, which involved several ER trips, lots of tests, and some really, really lovely drugs. To the day that menopause became not just something I was approaching, but something that had arrived. I had an emergency hysterectomy, and let me tell you, it's bad enough to lose estrogen slowly over time. It is something altogether different to go to sleep with it and wake up without it. My very competent, very compassionate, very male gynecologist tried to warn me. He all but insisted I start taking hormones immediately. It's going to get bad, he warned. Really, really bad. So, let's just go ahead and prevent that from happening, shall we? We'll see. No, we shan't, actually. Unlike 50 years ago, when there was no Google to find out why I was bleeding every month, or that sex wasn't gross, or that you can't gain 80 pounds, have a 6-pound baby, and not come home with the extra 74. I could find this one out for myself. A week of research and a history of breast cancer in my maternal gene pool made the decision an easy one. I will never forget my doctor's reaction when I told him that I wouldn't be putting synthetic hormones in my already seriously confused body. Of course it's your decision, my dear, he said, and honestly, I swear he patted my hand. You just give me a call then when you change your mind. So here I am, squarely in the middle of full-blown menopause. Yes, weight these days, way easier to gain than lose. And yes, I've been told that I can be a smidge moody. Although not often and never twice by the same person. The hot flashes are bad, I'm not gonna lie, and night sweats are completely miserable. There have been more nights than I can count when I wake up soaking wet and start flinging off blankets and sheets and peeling off clothes. Now, just for future reference, do tell your husband or significant other that when you start peeling your clothes off in the middle of the day, it does not necessarily mean the same thing it did in your 20s. But it's not all bad. Honestly, it's not. For me, a little St. John's wort here, a dash of black cohosh there. The thermostat set on 50 degrees year-round, and I'm good. The one great, big, glaring advantage is that there are no more periods. Ever. No more PMS, no more bleeding, no more bloating, no more cramping. There is no more need for birth control, which is a nice benefit once you get over the fact that there are also no more children. Maybe the best part of it all is that it didn't occur until I reached an age where the vanities of youth were no longer high on my list of what matters. When strands of gray became glistening silver threads and wrinkles around my eyes, lovely reminders of spontaneous, joyful laughter. It came when I was finally comfortable in my own crazy,